Welcome to Crypto Cove Technical Training with Hunter Rodriguez. I'm your host, Hunter Rodriguez. All right, today we're going to be going over a tool that I often use and counsel other people in the use, known as not Simple Swap, SmolRefuel. And this isn't the ideal situation that you would encounter when you're running low on gas or BNB. But we're just going to go over how a situation like that would go. All right, so for example, I have my sponsor here, Paul Thompson. And Paul, remember when we went out for drinks the other day and you covered my tab since I left my wallet at home? You're muted.
Sorry, it's a great start. Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and pay you back. So I'll go ahead and share my screen so you
Okay.
can see what I'm doing. And this is in the way. So I'll just open up my MetaMask and oh, it looks like there's a bit of a problem here. Now, can anyone tell me what that is? I know that's obvious, but just work with me.
Do you want me to answer that, or should I leave
Yeah,
that open?
you can go ahead and answer it.
Okay, yeah, you've got no BNB, which means you can't do any transactions.
Yep, can't do any transactions if you have no BNB. Now, this is a bit of a dramatic license here because chances are you're not going to see that you have no BNB at all. It could be that you see 2 cents worth, 6 cents worth, something of that nature. The point is that you just can't do a transaction with it. Like, for example, if we go to Tether USD and try to send, I'm going to just try and send to my account one. And it shows you a warning right there that you don't have any BNB, you don't have enough gas. But if I ignore that and hit max, then hit continue, it just doesn't let me go through with it at all. I have no way of clicking to continue, and I'm getting an alert here that says that I'm out of gas and I'll tell enough to pay for the network fees. So that's obviously a bad situation. Now, the ideal solution for that is to work with your sponsor. So, like for example, I could call Paul and ask Paul, "Hey, could you send me $1 worth of BNB so I can do a swap over?" And then what you would want to do at that point, ideally, is pay them back the $1 worth of BNB. But your sponsor may just decide to just float it to you and forget about it because it is, of course, in their best interest that you keep going in pool funding. That would definitely be something to work out on a case by case basis, depending on how your sponsor feels. Now, that would be the ideal situation. But if you ever run into a situation where your sponsor isn't reachable for a while, or you really need that BNB now, then that would be where this tool comes in, known as SmolRefuel. Now, what this tool allows you to do is it allows you to make a gasless swap to the native token that's on the blockchain that you're using. So, like for example, on the Binance Smart Chain, that would be the BNB or Binance coin. So when you go to SmolRefuel for the first time, you're going to see this screen that allows you to select a network and connect your wallet. What you're going to want to do first is connect your wallet, either using the Connect Wallet button up here in the top right, or the bigger and yellow Connect Wallet button down near the bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Connect Wallet button. And then from there, you're going to be given the choice of wallets to connect. You can see I have a few different wallets installed here, but for the sake of argument, we're going to go with MetaMask since that's the one that I mainly use, and that's probably the one that most people here and most people watching are going to be using. So we can go ahead and click MetaMask. And then MetaMask is going to pop up with a connection request. So you can go ahead and click connect. What this is going to do is it's going to connect MetaMask with SmolRefuel because SmolRefuel is a Web3 application. So it needs your wallet's access for you to be able to do much of anything with it. All right, I see we have a question so far. So Paul Thompson, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that this is what's described as a bridging platform and a bridging service. Is that right?
Well, it's not a bridging service. We'll get into that more of that in just a minute. But
Okay.
basically, this just allows you to swap whatever token you have on the network for the gas token that's used for that network.
Right.
Okay, so we'll continue on. And now that our wallet is connected, we can either select from the popular chains here. Like, for example, we see the BSC chain here or Binance Smart Chain. That's the one we're going to be using, but I want us to take a look at the selection first to give you all an idea of how many chains it supports. All right, so we have BSC, we have AI layer, we have AlienX, we have Arbitrum Nova, and it just goes down and down. I mean, you get the idea. If it's a chain that has a token standard to it, chances are SmolRefuel supports it. But in our case, since we're using the Binance Smart Chain, I'm going to click on the BSC here. All right, now that we've selected the Binance Smart Chain, we can go ahead and hit the Select Token button, and that will bring up the tokens that the tool supports. So in my example, we're going to be using USDT again, because that's what most people listening to this are going to have available to them. So we'll go ahead and click there. And usually you would want to put, say, $5 or $10 worth of BNB or USDT in the swap field, because that'll give you enough BNB to keep going for a little while. A general rule of thumb that I'd like to advise people is if you see the amount of BNB in your wallet dip below, say, $5 or so, you should probably think about topping up soon, because then that way you can avoid this situation happening and having to use this tool. But say we're having to use this tool, so I'm going to put the number 10 in here for the amount to swap. Now that's going to calculate the fees that are going to be associated with the swap. Now there's a couple separate fees that are going to be associated. One is the swap fee, because this tool actually uses the PancakeSwap API in this case, since we're on the Binance Smart Chain. So there's going to be a fee for that swap because number one, PancakeSwap takes that fee, of course. And there's also going to be a fee that the SmolRefuel service itself charges. So, of course, it can be profitable and the developer can keep the lights on. And then there's also going to be a fee to pay for the gas that you're going to receive. Because essentially what you're doing when you use SmolRefuel is you're applying for a short-term loan for the amount of gas necessary to send that USDT to the swap service, and then SmolRefuel will go ahead and do the swap for you on your behalf, and then it will just take the loan amounts out of the proceeds from that swap. So you pay back the loan and get the BNB or gas token in one fell swoop. All right, so now that we're ready, we can go ahead and hit the start swap button. All right, so now we're going to click the sign commitment button. See, sometimes this happens depending on the chain that you're on, because the tool can't automatically have access to your USDT unless you give it access, which is what we're doing here by signing the commitment. And basically what this is doing is, this is a promise you're making to continuing with the swap and paying back the loan. So we'll go ahead and click confirm. This is basically a smart contract sign that you don't need any gas to use. So we'll click confirm. And we'll wait a minute for it to confirm and for the gas to be added to our wallet. All right, that process is done. So we'll double check our wallet to make sure the gas is there. And yep, we've got 10 cents worth of BNB. So that should be enough to do a swap over using Pancake Swap. So we'll click approve. All right, and now MetaMask is going to pop up with a spending app request. This is basically giving the service SmolRefuel and Pancake Swap permission to spend the USDT from your wallet. So we'll go ahead and hit confirm. So now it's going to go through the process of sending your USDT over to Pancake Swap and doing a swap over to BNB. All right, that process is done, and we'll check MetaMask and go to tokens. All right, and there we are. We started with no BNB in there at all, and now we have $9.27 worth of BNB. So the swap has completed, and we're good to go. Now, in this example, I just swapped all the USDT that was in this wallet's address. Now, you would obviously want to have more in there than, say, 10, because you obviously need to make your payments and do other stuff. I just did it this way because this is TB. All right, so this tool can also be useful if you have a referral that's accidentally bought USDT on another chain, like, for example, the Ethereum chain. Now, I don't have the ability to really demonstrate that right now, but let's say, for example, if you did have someone who ran into that situation, you could have them click on the Ethereum chain here. And then if you select token, you would see that you would see an option for USDT here. So you could have them put USDT in and have them swap the whole lot over to Ethereum. And after they have their Ethereum, they can use a service like, say, Simple Swap or Fixed Float in order to swap that Ethereum over to the Binance coin on the Binance Smart Chain. So it's absolutely useful for that too. I tested it a couple times with that, with a couple people who have done exactly that, have accidentally gotten USDT on the wrong network. All right, so that pretty much sums up the tool and how to use it. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop my screen share, and we can get over to questions. Alrighty, hands. I see Paul Thompson. Looks like you have another question.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify, it was the simple swap a bridging platform,
Well, Simple Swap is a bridging platform that essentially allows for cross-chain swaps.
right?
Now, you really wouldn't want to use the bridging function per se, because that would be more expensive and it would take a lot more time. Because, say, if you want to actually bridge, you have a contract signing that costs gas, as well as the actual sending, which costs gas. And then on the other side, on the chain that you're going to get the token on, it's again going to be a transaction and then a contract signing. All that is, of course, going to cost gas and going to take fees out of what you receive.
What
Now, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of my uh, referrals or team members has some USDT on, it's either on Ethereum, I think, or rather possibly in the Avalanche Avax
All right,
platform.
then they can absolutely use that tool the way I just demonstrated,
Yeah.
and they can then swap the ABATs they get over to BNB on the Binance Smart Chain using something like Simple Swap or BitSlow, like I showed
Uh-huh. Fantastic. Thank you.
already. So back to bridging. Now, there are some cases where you actually would want to bridge, like for example, for value transfer. Say if you were trying to transfer Bitcoin over to another network, like say the Ethereum network or the Binance Smart Chain network, and you want to use a wrapped token in order to use the value of your BNB to, not BNB, BTC to get into a Web3 market, because Bitcoin natively does not support Web3 at all. Wrap tokens would be for another show like this, but that would be definitely beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. But it's definitely something to think about. Although, in general, for anything we would deal with, odds are good that just a cross-chain swap would be the most efficient and cheapest way to go about that. Alrighty, so do we have any more questions? Either about SmolRefuel or anything else crypto related?
Question. This is Susan.
Hello, Susan.
So, what you showed us this tool for is when we don't have any BNB available and we have something available perhaps on a different chain. Is that the purpose of this tool?
Well,
Because
that
the
would be
reason I ask is because I've been able to swap USDT for BNB right within the MetaMask wallet under the swap feature.
right. So you would do that if you had enough BNB to make the swap, say 62 cents worth or so.
Okay.
But in this situation, we had no BNB at all, or we had a very little amount, like say 2 cents, 6 cents worth, or what have you. Yeah, not even enough to send over to say Pancake Swap to make a swap.
Okay.
And and that would be on the same chain as we demonstrated, but the tool also supports bridging if you have a token on another network that you can send over. Now, again, that's going to be more expensive, so if you're in that situation, then you might want to use a cross-chain swap service like, say, Simple Swap or BitSlope, like I showed. But you absolutely have that option if that's where you want to do it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your help.
Absolutely. All right, do we have any more questions? No? Alrighty.
Sorry, I would
Yeah.
certainly like to know more about DeFi in general. I don't know if
So
if you can
DeFi in general stands for decentralized finance, and that uses the Web3 architecture to essentially allow us to use finance tools, like, for example, loan tools, as well as financing tools, while completely leaving banks and other financial institutions just out of the process altogether. Because the concern there is banks and their financial institutions exercise a great deal of control over the money that's supposed to be yours. And I imagine we have at least one or two people here who have seen that in action, whereby they might not have been able to purchase BNB when they're getting onboarded, or their bank gave them a really hard time about it. Do we have anyone here that had that happen to them?
I certainly had banks
Yes,
refuse.
it happened to me.
Alrighty, hands. Why was that? It's your money, isn't it? Why is the bank telling you what you can do with it?
Exactly. I don't know. And they said in an email that they didn't have to give me a reason. So
Yep,
that's
so
kind of creepy.
exactly. So that's the main purpose of DeFi, and proof positive for the reason why it exists, so that we can get to a point where that sort of thing can no longer happen. Because it's your money. Use it when you need it, however you want to use it. Because when we get to that point where we're letting someone else making that decision for us, then what happens whenever that bank decides, oh, no, you don't need that burger, or, oh, no, you don't need that salad, you don't need that lottery tickets, you don't need that, whatever they can come up with. So anyway, the tool that we just used, SmolRefuel, is actually a good example of a Web3 tool and a DeFi tool, because that actually allowed us to get a short-term loan, which allowed us to make that swap over from USDT over to BNB. So that's definitely a good example of such an application.
Have you heard about the removal of the SAB 121 SEC recommendation to banks?
Yeah, I read about that a little bit. Honestly, in general, I really don't see that going much of anywhere, because banks still see crypto as major competition to them and their control. So banks, of course, are going to be looking for any reason to just ignore crypto or be hostile to it altogether. All right, do we have any more questions?
What's happening with XRP? What is its function? What's going to happen with that?
So XRP I tend to really ignore, but I know a bit about it, in that it's definitely one of the tokens that banks in the traditional financial industry are definitely looking at and perhaps thinking about accepting. Now, I'm pretty bearish on that, because if banks in the traditional finance world are thinking of adding it to their portfolio or accepting it from their customers, then that should give us pause for concern there, because XRP is also controlled by the Ripple Corporation ultimately. So if Ripple decides at some point that they no longer want you to have control over your money, and they essentially want to become a bank in of their own rights, that obviously creates an issue for the people that have XRP and the cryptocurrency industry as a whole.
So what would you say is the safest, most decentralized, most secure token to hold?
So there's actually a lot of them. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, the list can go on. Now, if you're looking insofar as stable coins go, one thing that I've had my eye on for a while is DAI, DAI. And that essentially serves as a decentralized stablecoin that's backed by tokens such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the US dollar to some extent. And like Tether, that's essentially going to be pegged to the value of $1 most of the time. That one has been around for a while, but one of the issues until fairly recently, about the last few years, is that you could either have a lot of centralization, but the token stayed paid to US dollar, like for example, from what we see with Tether, USDT, or USD coin, or USDC. Or else you could have something that was more decentralized, like DAI was several years ago, but it would be paid from the US dollar at the drop of a hat, really. So until fairly recently, it was a pick your poison kind of thing.
One of the
But
things that often, sorry, had you finished?
go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things I'm often faced with is a question about the confusion over USDT. The fact that, you know, when you, for example, when you go into the Binance Smart Chain in your wallet and you search USDT, you get 4 or 5 different USDTs pop up, and people don't quite understand why that is. So, is there a good explanation for that you can give to people?
Right, so in some cases, that USDT is actually a form of wrapped token from other networks. Like, for example, I've seen one USDT that is on the Binance network, but it also has a red indicator on it that indicates that it was originally USDT on the Tron or TRC20 chain. Now, that's just the sort of thing that you have to look at when you're dealing with finance and the crypto world, because that interconnectivity can, of course, sometimes cause issues. But in some cases, it can also be good because it allows us to do cross-chain swaps or to leave our tokens in a certain format that we'd be more familiar with and more comfortable with.
So, the thing that I find difficult to explain is why, for example, you know, why someone might have USDT in their wallet, which is in their Ethereum wallet, for example, and they're confused as to why they can't just send that over to the Binance account, you know, the Binance chain account.
Right, so the reason for that is that you actually need gas to make that transaction. Now, gas on the Ethereum chain is going to be Ethereum, much like the Binance coin is the gas on the Binance Smart Chain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that can be a little bit tricky because the Ethereum chain can get really expensive, especially during peak times of use when traders are doing their thing, trading, because the Ethereum chain is actually one of the most popular chains, and that's the chain that sees the most money going back and forth throughout the market. So I've seen gas fees on the Ethereum chain go up as high as, say, $200.
Oh.
Yep, yikes.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why we have different chains that MetaMask supports, known as either layer 2 or side chains. And the Binance Smart Chain is, of course, a good example of this because we see fees as low as 2 cents, or during peak times, I've seen it go as high as $1 in very rare circumstances. So, of course, that might not be as good as, say, a cheaper option, but 2 cents to a dollar is obviously much cheaper than $200, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, for sure. So technically then, is it possible to send USDT from their Ethereum mainnet across to the Binance Smart Chain, just as long as you're willing to pay the fees?
Right. And if people want to do that directly, they can use a bridging service, or if they're willing to go through another hoop to save one or two of those fees, they can use SmolRefuel to swap the USDT they have on the Ethereum chain for Ethereum, and then send that Ethereum through a service like Simple Swap or FitFloat in order to get Binance coin.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, prevention is better than the cure, obviously, but that's definitely a good option if someone has a mishap.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, do we have any more questions?
Yes, hi, Hunter. It's Jeff here in Denver. I've got a
Hello, Jeff.
question. How are you, my friend? I've
I'm
got a
good.
question. I've had issues trying to go on MoonPay or Ramp or a couple of Transact. Those are the three where my money is tied up in my credit union, and they do not use Zelle. They use Venmo or whatever. But I have not been able to. I've leaned on Steve Thompson to help me out along the way. I've not been able to get my KYC, if you would, cleared with either one of those three. And I'm trying to figure out another way to be able to take monies from my credit union to put into my MetaMask wallet, because as you were alluding to earlier, my BNB is less than $1 now, and I need to do some reloading. Is there any suggestions that you might have for me?
So I actually have a section on this in my common problems document, but a few things that come to mind just off the top of my head is that you could try using another exchange, one of the more well-known ones that aren't Web3 compatible, how the bots, like for example, say Crypto.com, or if Binance is available in your area, then that would also be a good option.
Can I add
Okay.
one suggestion to that as well?
Sure.
Which may or may not be available to you, but the Revolut card is basically a card that in some parts of the world you can hold both crypto and fiat on it, and you can do an exchange within the wallet itself and on the card itself. But
Could you spell that for me, please? Paul, I'm sorry.
Revolut is REVOLUT. I'll put it in the
R-E,
chat.
okay.
Make sure I get it right. Yeah, Revolut. There's no E or anything. It's just as you see it.
I see it now. Thank you.
So at the very least, I think if you're providing you can open an account, because it's not available everywhere, I don't think, and it might vary from state to state in the US. But once you have that card, you can load that card up with fiat currency, ordinary currency from your bank, and then so you're holding then some cash, if you like, some US dollars on that card, which you can then use to pay for. You can actually use that card directly through the MetaMask wallet, or use it on an exchange. If the problem is your bank, then that's a way of circumnavigating your bank or diverting from your bank onto another payment service that will allow you to make purchases.
Okay. I'll look into that.
Yep,
But
and
I've had to do what you said on the front end, Hunter. I've had to go and ask Steve, send him, let's just say $100 and get it converted. And there's a lot of steps, if you would. I wish there was a simple way, but for whatever reason, it's not recognizing my driver's license, which is my form of ID, if you would. nor, at the time, my passport. So,
Yeah, and that can be a good option in a pinch, either working with your sponsor or another member of the community to make that work. But
right.
absolutely try some of the tips I recommended, like say crypto.com or Binance if it's available in your area. And of course, there's also the Revolut suggestion from Paul Thompson. And that's one example of a crypto card also that's essentially you can load with crypto and you can actually use that to buy things either in the physical world or online like you would do with a regular debit card. And once you go to make that payment that you do with the debit card that they provide you, it actually uses an exchange to sell enough of the token or say any other token on the BNC network or any other chain that they support in order to pay off that bill. So say you can use it at a restaurant or on Amazon or anywhere else for that matter, and the merchant doesn't know that anything different from the usual has happened. So that's definitely something to also take a look at, because that can be a pretty good way to spend your crypto once you start making more and more of it.
Right. Do you know anything about Cash App? Have you heard that one before? Because they issued me a debit card, a Visa debit card. That was one of the things that Steve was recommending I get. So, and it was
Right,
called
so
Cash App, I guess.
I don't really know much about Cash App itself, but I do know that they do allow you to make purchases in Bitcoin and I think one other cryptocurrency now. So that could be an option depending on if they support that in your region. So then you can purchase some Bitcoin and then swap that over to BNB.
Yeah, I made the mistake 4 years ago or whatever of converting my Bitcoin over to Ethereum, and so I have no more Bitcoin. And it wasn't a lot to begin with, but I'm
My
still,
condolences.
yeah, I'm still a novice. I apologize.
No judgment here. We all went through that period once.
Well,
Heck,
then,
go ahead.
sorry, there are those people, certain commentators in that marketplace who are saying that Ethereum has the potential to grow at a greater rate than Bitcoin. And don't forget, you see, if Bitcoin gets to $1 million, sounds a lot, but that's only 10 times what it is now, 10x. Whereas if Ethereum went to 1 million, then that's 40 or 50x. So so the potential for a higher return is actually sitting with Ethereum, assuming that what the observers claim its potential is. If it reaches its potential, then you stand to earn more from Ethereum than you would from Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And I can certainly see that happening because we've reached a point where Ethereum and other Web3 compatible tokens have a lot more utility than Bitcoin. Now, we could go into that for, say, another hour and a half, and I could definitely go into a big rant and argument about that. But it boils down to Bitcoin essentially serves as a store of value at this point rather than a proper currency. And it's, in fact, been called basically digital gold at this point. And I think that's a fair approximation.
That does raise an interesting question as to why or whether any platform or token has adopted gold as its backing asset, and why we don't have a coin that's attached to gold or a stable coin attached to gold. You have any comment?
That's a good question. And if I recall correctly, Hayes was talking about that a while back. Of course, that plan may be well off in the future. Of course, after the $1,000 pool is launched and we see a lot more members join up, but that's definitely a very good idea to say have a stable coin backed by like a grain of gold is the way he was talking about it at the time.
Right. Yeah. But the funny thing is, the gold is the value of gold is also fluctuating, isn't it? And I suppose that's true of
Right.
this dollar as well. So that would still be a somewhat more volatile asset than US dollar on the face of it, I guess, because US dollar is
Right.
pretty consistent in terms of its value.
Right. Right. Alrighty. Do we have any more questions?
Well, I could talk about this for hours, but I probably
You
won't.
and me both, my friends. You and me
Yeah.
both. In fact, I have with some people.
Yeah, it's a fascinating
I find it fascinating, and I'm a slow learner, so I apologize for asking the questions earlier here.
The
Not
only
a
way
problem. Not a
we
problem.
the only way we ever learn is to ask questions, isn't it? It's to start with no
Yep.
knowledge and discover knowledge, discover answers to questions. It's the only way to gain knowledge, really.
Yep, we've all been there. Like for example, I remember when I first heard about Bitcoin, initially I thought it was magic internet money. That will never not be funny to me, considering everything I know now.
Yeah, I was dealing with something called e-gold back in
I remember that.
yeah, which was kind of a forerunner to Bitcoin. It was an attempt to create a digital payment system based on gold, actually, wasn't it?
Right. Yep,
Supposedly.
that's entirely by gold and other precious metals.
Yeah, I wonder whatever happened to that. There we go.
They got shut down by the US government. See, one of the Achilles heels of a currency like that or an attempt like that is that it was highly centralized. So all any sort of governments had to do was just take over the central authority, and that was that.
Right. And actually that's probably something that people don't perhaps understand quite how it is that Bitcoin is almost kind of untouchable by authorities. And it's simply because they can't pin anyone down as being the owners of it or being the source of it. It's now out in the world and it's living its own life, isn't it?
Right, it's decentralized, and the only person that we could technically say is the owner of Bitcoin is Satoshi Nakamoto, and no one knows anything about them, who they are, where they are, or even how many of them there are.
Yeah.
So there's no Bitcoin CEO like some sensationalist news might have you believe. So there's no place I can go to call the Bitcoin CEO or go to their office and say, hey, let's chat. Because number one, such a CEO doesn't exist. And number two, even if they exist, they would probably be saying, who are you? How did you get up here? What happened to my security guards?
Yeah.
Security, don't validate his parking.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to tell you guys, I'm glad that you make these calls, Hunter, when you choose to do so. It definitely is, like you're saying, educational. We can all benefit from that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Much appreciated. Yeah, Hunter, I've often said it, you're a crypto hero.
Thank you very much. You're gonna make me so red in the face that I have to turn my camera off.
You're already the color of your shirt.
That's true. That's true.
You're getting the sunshine, that's what it is.
I'll
Yeah,
second that.
fair enough.
He may be, he may be intention having intention to wear a pink color so that the face will be pink is also not obviously the geoshy.
I could have banned
That
it.
actually,
Go on, sorry.
that actually wasn't my intention. It's just that this is my favorite college shirt, so.
Oh.
But
Could
it's
have,
nice when things work out that way.
it could have seriously backfired had your face been really white, because then it would have made it look worse.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you lucky
Alrighty,
people that live in those lovely warm places. I don't know. I'm here shivering in this in the UK at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's 3 or
my
whatever.
condolences.
That's why I don't have my video on, because I'm here half naked at the top.
Understood, understood.
And much
Yeah.
appreciated.
You again, Hunter.
Yeah, thank you, Hunter.
Yeah, thank
You're
you.
very welcome. All right, do we have any more questions?
Just keep up the good work.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I
Thank you,
absolutely intend
Hunter.
to. Alrighty, if there's no more questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording. Going once. Going twice. All right, and I'll go ahead and stop the recording.